76ers. 10, 9, 8, 76ers.
What's going on, everyone? This is UK 76ers. My name is Ben Glasspool, and tonight the Sixers have lost by 122 points to 109 points to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, in my last video when we lost against the Cavs, I wasn't happy. I was angry, I was frustrated, I felt let down by the team. And look, you can come into this game and think, there's no Kyrie, there's no KD, there's no Dinwiddie. We should win this, and we should win this. We should have won tonight. But I don't find myself too angry this evening, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because we've been on a good run, and I'll give this team a pass. Maybe it's because we did only play last night. But, I think sometimes you just get a bit unlucky. I think, Joe Harris went off for 28 points. Karis LeVert got close enough to 30. The Nets team just had it going. Jeff Green was draining contested shots, as was Taurean Prince. Jared Allen played really well. I think sometimes you've got to hold your hands up and say, we're a bit unlucky, we're obviously fatigued. Now look, I'm not just trying to make an excuse and say, oh, we played last night, that gives us a pass. It doesn't, and there are some things which I will get into which did annoy me, which I do want to see stop, because I've seen it all too many times, not just tonight, but in a couple games beforehand, and we will dive into it. But I think people are losing their minds just a bit, as we often do in sports when your team loses, and it happens not just in basketball, it's not just on the Sixers, it happens everywhere. I see it all the time. It happens for my football team in the Premier League whenever we lose. It just happens in sports. That's the nature of it. People are so emotion fueled that when things don't go their way, they lose their minds, and that's kind of the beauty of the sport in a weird way. But you do also need a bit of perspective, and our season isn't finished, and our season isn't completely jeopardised just because of one game. If less than 24 hours ago you were saying, after our win against the Wizards, that Joel Embiid is a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, MVP candidate, he still is. That hasn't changed. If you're saying similar things about Ben Simmons, he still is. That hasn't changed. One game doesn't change the season. Teams lose games. No one goes unbeaten. Unless you're Arsenal in 2004. But, that's a whole different conversation. But no one generally goes unbeaten. The best NBA teams throughout history, if you think it's the Warriors, if you think it's the Bulls, if you think it's the Celtics from back in the day, the best NBA teams lose games. We are not even the best team in this league. Not by a long stretch. So we 100% will lose games this year, and we'll lose them to the most random opponents. We'll beat the hardest teams, and we'll lose to some of the weaker teams, and vice versa. That's just basketball. That's the way it goes. So let's just calm ourselves. But one thing that did annoy me is the defense, and I've spoken about it before, particularly the pick and roll defense. And in the Wizards game, Beal and Bertans, Beal got his points because he came off of screens and there was a clear runway or a clear opening for a shot. Similarly with Bertans, and Bertans obviously has a quick trigger and he'll just shoot, and normally he drains them because that's just how good he is on three. Joe Harris did the same thing. It's no coincidence. I'm sure Steve Nash saw that if you get a good hard screen, we don't defend pick and rolls well. The five, if it's Embiid, if it's Howard, doesn't step up, and they got a clear shot. And Harris got a lot of his threes. A lot of his points were threes, given that he is a 3-point sharpshooter after all. Of course they are, and they all came from similar sort of predicaments from those screen sets. We need to figure out how to. It's not hard, but we need to make sure we assert that this is how to defend pick and rolls. So that was one thing, and I've made claims against this plenty of times before. You guys will know I've been annoyed by this plenty of times before, and should it surprise me that we saw it again today? No, but I can still be annoyed at this. Another thing, how we defend the glass. We got a big team. Simmons gets his rebounds. Embiid, of course, gets his rebounds. Tobias is getting a good amount. But for whatever reason, we just seem to get bullied on the offensive glass. Let me look at the stats for the offensive boards this evening. The Nets had 11 offensive boards to our 4. That's just disgraceful. And the thing is, a lot of them, sometimes, when they're shooting long from 3, long shots equal long rebounds, and it just comes back to them. Sometimes that's the luck of the bounce. But there are other times where we just seem to switch off, where we are shocked that the balls come our way, but the Nets player isn't and he gets it. It's all about keeping switched on in the moment, and we weren't. And again, that can be linked back to the fatigue side of things, playing last night, etc., etc. But this is the basics of basketball. It's the fundamentals. Expect the rebound, box out, communicate. We weren't doing any of that. And Jarrett Allen, DeAndre Jordan, they're serial rebounders. They'll have their way on the boards if you don't box them out and if you don't do what you need to do on the defensive glass. So that was a real big annoyance for myself. Turnovers. And we're the team who have the third most turnovers in the league. I want to say how many did we have this evening? Turnovers, we had 20 turnovers and the Nets got 35 points off of it. And these are sloppy turnovers. One that kept frequently happening was someone, either Embiid or Simmons, they post up, and then Tobias or whoever else would try and throw a ball in, and they just overthrow it. What? These aren't crazy eye of the needle passes which only, Magic Johnson can pass out. These are pretty basic passes. They're not done quickly. You set, your feet are set. You see the pass. All you got to do is just lob it over your guy, and in it goes into their hands, into the breadbasket. They weren't doing this, and then more often than not, we were punished. If you turn the ball over, if you don't rebound, and if you don't defend the 3-point line via the pick and roll well, you're going to struggle in most games, and we struggled tonight, and it showed. This is why we lost the game. Now, people, again, I want to hark back to the overreacting side of things. I saw people say, Tobias Harris, he's back to the Tobias we knew from last season. Pump the brakes. We've seen more good Tobias than we have bad Tobias this season. So why does one bit of bad Tobias negate more good Tobias? I'm not sure if I put that across brilliantly, but you know what I mean. We've seen more good than bad, so let's just calm ourselves. All right? He's still got 17 points. Admittedly, he's 43% shooting, not the most efficient night for him. 17 points, 8 boards, 4 assists. He did his best. He had a nice steal. That defensive prowess is clearly there, and it's clearly improving. So, it's just not his game. Again, people want to blame Danny Green. And I'm turning into a bit of a Danny Green stan, but people are saying, oh God, he's washed. He can't do the fundamental. And look, defensively, he wasn't brilliant. He had people saying, he's not making his shots. He was 3 of 5 from 3. We definitely missed Seth Curry. And one thing that was a bit of an issue with the no Seth there. Seth's our best shooter. We know this. You've seen his rate. See what he did last night against the Wizards. He's our best shooter. And our offense can be quite easy to work out. It's Embiid post up, you double up, you swing it round, and you drain the 3. And look, I've sung the praises of that, so I can't then turn around and say this is simplistic. But you need to try and throw something else out there so you can be a bit unpredictable, or you keep the defense on their toes, because the Nets figured it out. The Nets knew what we were trying to do, and that made it difficult, especially when the shots weren't always draining because we didn't have our best shooter out. So the real question is when Embiid was fatigued, because he is fatigued, he was fatigued. He got 20 points and 12 rebounds. Sounds like a good night for most people. He didn't have the best night, eye test, it showed it, box scores and everything, and yada yada yada. But when Embiid is fatigued, he can't keep carrying this team and putting us on his back. Last night against the Wizards, he carried us to that win. Tonight, he couldn't. Who's going to step up? No one really did. Simmons had a poor evening, and the same issues reared their ugly head with Ben Simmons, and that was finishing at the rim. And someone tweeted it perfectly. Ben Simmons is 6'10". That's the size of most centers you'd find in the NBA. He finishes like Fred VanVleet at the rim. No disrespect to Fred VanVleet, but Fred VanVleet is 6 foot. Ben Simmons, with the pace, with the physicality he's got, he shouldn't be scared of contact. And a lot of the turnovers came from him trying to do too much when he was running to the rim. Get at him. Whatever happens, happens. You have such a crazy amount of ability, and you're scared to use it almost. Look, the next game he'll go and prove me wrong, and then I'll look foolish. But we want this consistency. And the 2 games prior, fantastic. That's all I wanted. Look, admittedly, the finishes weren't quite what I envisioned, but they were dropping at the very least. Tonight, they were weak. He was weak, and 11 points, you just expect a bit more, or at least do it on an efficient rate, and he wasn't. He had a 3-point shot. That was something, wasn't it? Look, you can't have it both ways. You either want Ben Simmons to shoot, this is the natural consequence of it. And I wouldn't even call it a consequence. This is just, you got to take the rough with the smooth. For every 3-point shot that he drains, there's going to be X amount of misses. All that needs to happen is that he shoots at the right times. It's all about, you see what happened with Giannis. People always hark back to, oh, look at Giannis, he shoots. Giannis in the playoffs, whenever he shot, he let his team down because that wasn't the correct shot. If Simmons is open and the shot's there and it's in the flow of the offense, it doesn't feel forced, and he misses, so be it. Look, he misses badly. He hit the glass, didn't get any of the rim. But this is kind of, we don't want the end product, but this is what we want. We want him to shoot. We want him to feel confident, to take shots. And this is what happens if you call for Ben Simmons to shoot. This is what you're going to have to expect until it really improves. And it's only going to improve if he shoots more. So, you can't go and, clown the guy for shooting when you have been calling for him to shoot for ages. You've been lamenting him. But anyway, that was Ben Simmons' evening. Tyrese Maxey and the second unit. Shake Milton stepped up. I know he's starting, but he is still kind of part of that second unit because normally he would be that sixth man. We were let down by the starting five minus Shake Milton. He was fantastic. And there was a period when in the third quarter, we looked like the game was going to run away from us. And then on the court, we had Isaiah Joe, we had Dwight Howard, we had Shake, we had Tyrese Maxey. I think we had a bit of Dakota Mathias as well. He had a bit of run in the rotation. And somehow we got within 10 exactly by the end of the third. And I was just like, we should be dead in the water. We should be thrown out. But the second unit, who, given that they are the second unit, means they're the less able players, gave more desire and more drive and more want than anyone in those starting five. The starting five made up of all stars, all NBA caliber players. And I take some positives from that because it's nice that there's this drive and there's this want to play basketball and play competitively regardless of the situation you're in. But also, if you're that starting five, you must look at yourself and think, we are getting shown up here by rookies, by people who may not be in the league this time next year for all I know. And they're showing us up against, the Nets team that they were up against wasn't a bad one. It wasn't if they threw in the end of the bench either. They were still here to play. They were here to put the nail in the coffin, and we didn't let that happen because of that second unit. And we then go into the fourth quarter with a slither of hope. And the only way for myself that we would have won that game is if we start the fourth quarter with the people that got us there, i.e. Shake Milton, Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey had a fantastic game. And probably with Ben Simmons and with Joel, and I know I just alluded to it wasn't the best game, but the thing is they get you over the line regardless. They are a force. We didn't. We had the likes of Matisse starting the fourth, and I will get to Matisse in just a moment. And then the Nets could have a bit of a run. The momentum we had is squandered, and the game's done really. Matisse Thybulle, he really needs to sort of his offensive game out. I appreciate that he's taking the shots, and he's on the defensive end. He's still fantastic, but he's just on the offense. You're not going to worry about him if you're a defender. There was a fast break moment where he had a great steal, as he often does, as we know Matisse does regularly, and the finish was just so poor. And you just don't look. He can get you 2 blocks and 2 steals in a game in limited minutes, but he's not going to get you much more than 5 points right now. And that's a real issue that needs ironing out because we want him to be part of this rotation. And this might be hypocritical. In the last video, I said, he can help this team out even when he's not doing brilliant on the offensive end. That is true, but when you need points, but you also need stops, that means you only got 4 guys that can get you those points. It's a real conundrum that we need to try and figure out right away. And again, I mentioned in my last video, I looked at potential trades, and the one that sticks out to mind is the Zach LaVine one. Now look, I don't know what the Chicago Bulls are want. I'm not a Bulls fan, but from what I can gather from reputable Bulls fans on Twitter, if there's such a thing as a reputable fan on Twitter, but The ones I've seen, they're saying Danny Green's expiring, they're saying a couple picks, and they're saying Matisse Thybulle might just get you over the line. And if that's the case, you do it in a heartbeat. Look, this is just me spitballing. I could be wrong for all I know. They may ask for a bit more. They probably will. But if that trade's available, you do it. But because it's just looking kind of bleak on the other side. And basketball is, unfortunately, it's a game that you play on two ends. Andre Robertson's a great defensive player, but he can't, for the life of him, do anything on the offensive end. And last time I checked, I don't think he has a team. Look, we didn't lose this game because of Matisse, so let's just nip that one in the bud as well. But this was really disappointing. It was disappointing, but the key thing to take away from it is let's just not lose our minds. There are a lot of factors which led to this loss. That's including fatigue. That's including the fact on the back end of a back-to-back. And it's including defensive frailties, which keep showing themselves. And it's because of the turnovers, and it's because of a failure to box out, and we didn't bring that intensity. But this just happens. It happens in every season. It happens to every team, no matter how good you are. We just got to take it on the chin and move on. It's a real shame we couldn't get the win here because there was a real opportunity. No Kyrie, no KD, no Dinwiddie. But you can't linger. You can't dwell. And that's the beauty of the NBA. Yeah, we're feeling a bit low right now. But we got the Nuggets on Saturday, and if we have a good game, we get a win. This is forgotten. So we just got to move on. Go on to Denver on the Saturday evening. It should be a good one. It's Jokic against Embiid. Embiid will... Look, we know what Embiid's like competitively. And he'll want to get out Jokic. I'm sure he will. And I think he's going to have a very big game. So we can just move on to that. Put this one aside. Forget about it. We got to learn from the mistakes. Because there were mistakes. I've reeled off the mistakes that happened this evening. We've got to learn from them and move on. Because in the NBA, you cannot dwell. You cannot dwell. So anyway, I feel like for a loss, this was relatively upbeat. I wasn't angry. Look, I've said I was angry, but it's not the same level of rage I had in the Cavs loss. Like I said, we just got to move on. And we have to. We will. Anyway, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you Saturday for the Denver game. Stay safe, guys.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.